Reverend Taylor. Fantastic. Expressing your unique gifts. I love it. So this Sunday, I would like to talk about the importance of community and being in spiritual community and the love felt within the walls of Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center, the light of our individual hearts illuminating this community, the spiritual truth that we are simply here to let God be God in us. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I just, as most of you know, especially if you're on Facebook, I just came back from the conference, Affiliated New Thought Network, Anson Conference, and just to be with all of this larger community takes this community, expands it, and it's just very expansive for the mind, especially when you're on a boat with 3,000 other people. But they were all, I know that they had a better time because of the consciousness of the ministers and practitioners and guests who were there, part of our community. Again, community. And then yesterday, wow, did we have fun? Those who went bowling! We had a bowling party, and I'm going to tell you, it was so much fun. We're going to make it biannually. We're going to do it twice a year because it really is so much fun to be with everyone and to bowl. So I did make, I think to Elliot, I made a statement that, you know, God always gets strikes. And in our humanity, we sometimes get gutter balls. Which I and my sister are the queens of gutter balls. My sister's in the back there. So let's get back to this whole, but we've been having so much fun, and we're going to continue the fun. But for those who are new here to what we call Science of Mind, religious science, it's what it is, I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes from the founder of religious science, Ernest Holmes. And this is where our teachings came from. But he wrote this, very, very interesting. The philosophy of religious science is nothing new to the world. It is rather a synthesis of the greatest concepts that have ever come to the mind of man. The law of Moses, the love of Christ, the ethics of Buddha, the morals of Confucius, the deep spiritual realization of the Hindus, the mystical revelations of the saints of the Middle Ages, the laws of parallels and compensation of Emerson, the logic of Kant, the spirituality of Swedenborg, the beauty of Browning, and the wide universal sweep of Walt Whitman all find an exalted place in the philosophy of religious science. I never had a revelation. He's writing this. I never had a revelation, final or otherwise, and the knowledge I've acquired here on earth when I arrived will be here after I shuffled off. Wherever you find truth, it belongs to everybody. He didn't create this. He's saying, I'm not different from anyone else. As we know, the Master Teacher Jesus also walked this earth and said the same thing, these and more you can do. Because we are all part of this unity, this one life. So my definition of this spirituality then is a blending of Eastern and Western spiritual paths that support us in one, having an intimate relationship with the God of our being, whatever we feel that God is. Taking full and complete responsibility for our own lives. That's the beauty of Science of Mind, is that it's teaching us to be responsible. You can't push it off and say it was someone else's fault. Oh, ain't it awful because they did this to me. This is about empowering us to take responsibility, and as Ken did, make the choice to get out of bed. Make the choice that in spite of what is going on in life, to walk the path that brings you the greatest joy. So today we expand the idea of being fearless in all that we came here to do. to really deepen into the spiritual truth of our being in order for us to be who we were meant to be. We need one another. We can't go it alone. Well, we can, and you know where that's going to get you. So we can't go it alone. We were put on this earth together. We were put here as the human race to do great things together. That is inherent in who we are and what we are made out of. We are made out of the same spiritual stuff, individualized. So we are here in community. We may have many hands, but we have one heart. We join together in that heart, in the truth that flows through all the great religions, all the great philosophies, that great truth that God is love. There's a story of an old African king who is dying, and he calls his children, their husbands, wives, and relatives to his side, and gives each one of them a short, sturdy stick, and says to them, "Break this stick." For some of them, it's fairly easy. For others, it's a bit harder. But eventually, they all get their sticks broken. This is how it is when the soul goes it alone in this world. They can all be broken, said the elder. Next, the old man gives each of them another stick and some twine, and he says to them, "Now bind your sticks together in bundles of 2, 3, 4, or 5, and break those bundles in half." As you might imagine, no one could break the bundles, not even the bundles of just two sticks. Upon seeing this, the old man smiled and said, "We are stronger when we stand with another soul. When we are with another, we cannot be broken. This is how I would like you to live after I am gone." And I think that that is a really beautiful analogy of being together, supporting each other, being there for one another. We can't be broken. And if we are, we can reach out for help. So not only are we individually strong when we stand together in truth, the community, this community, all communities are necessary for us to be able to fulfill our purpose here on earth. I know I have loved being in community for over 20 years now, this kind of community. Before this, it was other communities. But my soul gravitates to be with a group of like-minded people, and because I'm here with Norman, who is a practitioner and a martial artist also, like myself. Before this, it was the martial arts. It was a community. It's the soul longing to be with other like-minded souls. So I believe that there is no greater place to stand together than in a spiritual community. And what makes a community spiritual one? Because that concept is much bigger than the concept of church. In the Eastern teachings, spiritual community is referred to as Sangha. Sangha is a community of individuals dedicated to creating and sustaining an environment that nurtures and supports everyone. Mindfulness and spirituality as a lifestyle. And that's what we teach in the classes, the workshops, and here on Sunday services. This is not just someone speaking to you. This is about giving you information to live our lives with. And for myself too, is to live our lives, not just to hear the words, but to actually, as Ken so beautifully shared with us, to use them when we need them. So one of the primary elements created in Sangha is a feeling of safety for those involved. Just feeling safe in an environment. Each person is respected, accepted, and loved just as they are. Just as they are. It's a safe place to come here and be who you are. It's an environment where individual creativity is incubated and authentic self-expression is encouraged. It's a place where your greatness is believed in. We believe in the dreams of each and every person. I know I've been in classes and people said, well, this is going to sound crazy. And I think to myself, no, it's not. Because this is a place where we get to be. We really get to be ourselves. Nothing's crazy. My God, nothing is crazy. I think about my life. Nothing is crazy. In Sangha, the elements of joy and serva, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, being in service to others, are present. This community operates to the service of each and every person that walks through those doors and volunteers and just joins us in consciousness. In such an environment, it's amazing to witness others unfold in their own unique spiritual nature with grace, elegance, and ease. We see it over and over again. This is true spiritual community. This is Sangha. This is a good place to be, is it not?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right. So in his book, The Art of Being, Dennis Merritt Jones wrote this. He said, Sangha is not a building. It is a consciousness held by a collective group that welcomes, celebrates, and honors you just the way you are. You'll know it because it is as if you walked into a wall of love, immersing you in it in the most amazing way. I know that's how I feel when I walk in on Sundays. I just love the feeling, the beauty, the support. I know I have shared this following quote before, maybe last year, but I want to do it again because it goes so beautifully with the talk today. This is from Starhawk in her book, Dreaming the Dark, and it's another way of describing Sangha. Somewhere, she wrote, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light as we enter. Voices will celebrate us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our own strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Some place where we can be free. And I have another beautiful statement about Sangha, this time from Ernest Holmes in his book, Can We Talk to God? He wrote, there is something in us that longs for sympathetic understanding, the kindly response, the sense of a presence which is warm, pulsating, and colorful. We must have it. And I sense that as we meet each other in love and friendship, in the warmth of a handshake, and in good fellowship, it is God. What else could it be? The hand that gives is the hand of God. And the eye that sees is the eye of God. In each other, through each other, we contact God. Beautiful. So, this is just utopia, isn't it? This is the Garden of Eden kind of stuff, right? When we are in spiritual community, we live in this space all the time. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
And when you walk out the door and face life and you just lost your job and your wife or husband leaves you, or still Garden of Eden, huh? So,
Only our perception that changes, not the fact.
So, as I was prayerfully contemplating this and looking at what's going on in my own life and in the life of this spiritual community, I see human behavior that we all engage in to some degree or another that can kind of knock us off of Sangha consciousness. Let's call it Sangha consciousness quicker and then greased lightning. What is a common barrier? What is a common barrier to experiencing that blocks this experience of this beautiful paradise that we all agree that we have here? Well, it was spoken about, and this is why there's one mind, because Veronica had no idea. It was spoken about in Don Miguel Ruiz's book. I agree with Ken here, changed my life, the Four Agreements book, written in the late 90s. In fact, it's one of the agreements he suggests we make with ourselves in order to live in what he calls white magic, because he's from the Toltec tradition. So he defines white magic as the place of creating, giving, sharing, and loving. And that sounds like Sangha to me. It is the agreement, and this is the agreement that can block us. It's the good one. They're all great. Never make assumptions. Not to make assumptions. Oh my goodness. I make assumptions about making assumptions about making assumptions. It's like, I was with my sister this morning and I gave myself a headache about all the assumptions that I was making on top of all the other assumptions. We have a tendency, we all do, we have a tendency to make assumptions about almost everything. And the problem with making them is once we've made them, we absolutely believe that that is the truth. It's the truth. Well, it's the truth. And then we emotionally respond from that assumption that we made that we believe is the truth. And I love, this is what Ruiz wrote in his book. It is very interesting how the human mind works, he said. We have the need to justify everything. Yeah. To explain and understand everything in order to feel safe. We have millions of questions that need answers. It is not important if the answer is correct. Just the answer itself seems to make us safe. That is why we make assumptions. If others tell us something, we make assumptions. And if they don't tell us something, this is still Don Miguel, we make assumptions still to fulfill our need to know and replace the need to communicate. Even if we hear something and don't understand, we make assumptions about what it means, and then we believe the assumptions. We make all kinds of assumptions because we don't have the courage to ask questions. It's about asking questions. So of course the way to stop this behavior that really messes up the Sangha consciousness in our lives is so darn simple. It's simply to ask, to get clarification. But how many times we just make the assumption and go on that? To make sure that the communication is clear, if you don't ask, you don't really understand. We can never understand what another person is truly thinking and feeling. No matter what comes out of the mouth, we can't really. But we can at least ask. That brings about some kind of clarity in any given situation. And while I agree with all of that completely and totally, there are deeper assumptions we need to question as well. Those are the assumptions we make about ourselves. What do we make assumptions about ourselves? Who is our own worst enemy sometimes? Ourselves. Those are the ones that we really need to question. Like, is this true? That's when we can do the Byron Katie work. We'll have Martha Creek here doing two days of work, 2-day workshop on the Byron Katie with the 4 questions. Is this true? That's the first question. I have to take the workshop to learn the rest. But I find myself making assumptions, as I'm sure you do, all the time. And Holmes writes in Words That Heal, that's the name of the book, we reach God and others by reaching out from the God within the self. Always the God in others will respond to the God in us, but never beyond the level of our inward spiritual awareness. And so we ask ourselves, we ask ourselves, what belief am I holding about myself that causes me to make that assumption about another? Because if we see it in someone else, it's present within us. Spot it, you got it, right? And then we realize that that belief is also an assumption that we have named to be truth. This is a belief, and we believe it is absolutely true. So if we can't move from the habit of immediately, if we can move into the habit of immediately questioning not only the surface assumptions we make, but the assumptions underlying the assumptions. Got that? The assumptions underlying the assumptions, our deep beliefs, we then can move into a whole new direction, a direction that serves us. Our relationship with ourselves and then with others will be truly transformed, and you will have the ability to create Sangha, spiritual community. So it's one thing to speak about all of this in theoretic terms of the power of Sangha. It is another to share an experience of it. So I want to invite someone up who knows, who has had this experience. So I'm going to invite Reverend Dennis Flynn.
Thank you, thank you. Wow. When I walked in this morning, the very first thing that happened is I had a group hug with Marianne and Elliot. When I think of where I was 4 or 5 years ago, when I felt alone in the world with no friends, not close to my family, financially broke from a painful divorce, and fresh from the end of a very, very emotional relationship. I was already on a spiritual path at that time because I was studying A Course in Miracles, 4 Agreements, Power of Now, A New Earth. I was getting all this information, but there was one thing I was lacking, and that was a sense of community. That was a sense of other like-minded people, because I was reading all these things on my own in a vacuum. And my therapist at the time had recommended I come see Vince's lectures here in this room on Wednesday nights, and I started doing that. And it was through that process that I found out that Joyful Gathering was meeting here on Sundays. And so I didn't have a spouse to nag me to come here. I more or less had another voice kicking me out of bed, saying, give it a try. You know, you don't know what you're missing. And I came and I sat quietly, and everything about this center touched me in some way, whether it was the music, whether it was the talk, whether it was just the fact that the way people were interacting with each other. And suddenly I began to not feel so alone in the world anymore. And that has been probably one of the most powerful things about being part of this spiritual center, is being with like-minded people. And when I think of the people that I've been with all the way through, you know, Brenda, you and I have been through classes together since I first started coming here, and Barbara, and now we're in Reverend Jolene, and now we are in practitioner, the second year, just finished the second year of practitioner studies. Well, we have 7 more weeks to go. And it's just, I just can't imagine how this happened. It just manifested. And what's the best part about this is the one mind. It just seems, there's just, every day there's more evidence to me that this is real, that this is true, that this is right. A few weeks ago, I was picking up my daughter from her mother's house. It was my weekend with my daughter. And we had not made any plans for dinner or anything like that. And I hadn't spoken to my girlfriend all day, other than a text earlier, so I had no idea what she was going to be doing with her boys. So I went to pick up Carly. I was like, what do you want to do for dinner? I really didn't prepare anything. I didn't make anything. No, all right, let's go to Red Robin. We haven't been to Red Robin in a while. We tried to go a couple weeks ago. It was too crowded. So I was like, okay, let's go to Red Robin. So we drove to the Red Robin in Cherry Hill. As I'm pulling in, I'm getting a text from my girlfriend. She goes, "You are kidding me." She was there with her 2 boys. We had literally pulled up at the exact same second. And I sit there, it's like, I'm not even surprised when this kind of stuff happens anymore. Of Course in Miracles says, miracles should inspire gratitude, not awe. And that's exactly the way I'm living my life, with a very, very grateful heart, grateful for the lessons I've learned, the experiences I've been through, the fact that I listen to that still small voice tell me to get up one April morning and come to Joy. This is my anniversary month of being with Joyful Gathering. So, and now, it's such a pleasure for me to serve for this center and volunteer and work for this center and just be a part of this great, great community. It doesn't mean life is not without its struggles. It doesn't mean that we don't have disagreements. It doesn't mean life is perfect. But what we do have is, as Ken said by his well-worn copy of that book, are tools. We have powerful tools that help us through those times. We have practitioners. If we need prayer, we have practitioners who we can go to. The demonstrations of that alone, I received clarity about a relationship that told me that it wasn't healthy for me, and which was right. So many things that I've prayed for, that I've had treatment for. This is just powerful, powerful stuff, and you all know it. You're all here, so I'm preaching to the choir. So thank you very much.
And to think you didn't even know he was going to be doing that. Yeah. He knew. Okay, so let me end then with this beautiful Hopi elder's prophecy, and it goes like this. To my fellow swimmers, life is a river flowing now very fast. It is so great and swift that there are those who will be afraid, who will try to hold on to the shore. They are being torn apart and will suffer greatly. Know that the river has its destination, and all is well. The elders say we must let go of the shore, push off into the middle of the river, swim and keep our head above waters. And I now see who is there, and I say, see who is there with you and celebrate. The time of the lone wolf is over. Gather yourselves. Banish the word struggle from your attitude and your vocabulary. All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration. For we are the ones that we have been waiting for. And so it is.